Buildy here. Buildy's gonna Buildy's gonna pontificate. Yeah. Buildy's gonna pontificate on orthodoxy. Alright, you see what I did there? Pontificating, not on Catholicism, but on orthodoxy. Today's Sunday. It's the Lord's Day. I didn't go to church. I'm doing laundry. I just got off work. My struggle is real. Sabbath breaker and a scofflaw. Shouldn't listen to me. You need to listen to Kenneth Copeland or John Hagee, maybe. No. I'm talking about orthodoxy. Forget about those other guys. Orthodoxy. I admire the Orthodox Church, and I want to be Orthodox. I consider myself Orthodox. I'm not sure if I'm considered Orthodox by some of the Orthodox Church, though, because I'm a pretty unorthodox person, and I live an unorthodox life. I had to work today. I have to work many Sundays, most Sundays, actually, when I'm working. I'm not a settled person. You know, people have a church, they want their little church community. It is a community. It's supposed to be a community. You don't like, weird people drifting through with no roots. Weird, rootless people might be a troublemaker. So you want nice, fat, happy, little settled people that don't have any kind of big problems. And that makes things run real smooth. You can have nice things. I've been following some of the Orthodox sites on the internets. And, well, of course, there's Ukrainian Orthodox, the Unate Church, which is different than Ukrainian Orthodox, and there's Russian Orthodox, and there's Russian Orthodox in America. Very subtle. I think there's a lot of local autonomy to the individual churches too. They don't seem to have an iron hand in running things like some other denominations. It seems like that to me anyway. My local church back at home in Crimea was the Cathedral of St. Vladimir, where Vladimir was baptized. He was the king of the Kievan Rus, baby. One of the places where Russian culture started. It's about a 5-minute walk from my erstwhile home. They gave me communion there once. Some of these sites geared towards Americans. There's a lot of Americans becoming Orthodox because the Orthodox Church has a history. I mean, it's got a history. It goes back to, the first church. I mean, when the church first happened, before there was a Bible, there was a church. Church was in play a long time before what we know as the Bible was put together. Sola Scriptura indeed. There's tradition. There's a church body. You could call it jurisprudence. In Islam, there's an equivalent to that. There's you have the Quran, which is the book of heaven, which is an exact copy of the one that Allah has sitting on his coffee table right now. Yeah, you go to Barnes and Nobles and you buy a Quran in Arabic. It is exactly like the one Allah has sitting on his coffee table. And, well, you can't go wrong with that. But then again, it has to be interpreted by the Sunnah and the Hadith. And then that You know, in places where it says, you know, to go out and kill shirks and all that, you can't just do that. That makes you a takfir, which is haram. It has to go through a jurisprudence, a process. It has to go through the caliphate, the mullahs, the elders. The church is similar to that too. The church you have your scriptures, but then you can't just go and interpret them any way you like, even if you're a priest. That being said, the Orthodox Church has, in case you don't know it, they have a calendar, and certain scriptures are read on certain days, and that's a good thing. They've kept a tradition. That's how they keep it for all these years. They've kept, of course, the calendar got changed by force by, I think, Peter the Great one time. He didn't change the service any, but he changed the calendar. And then you have your old believers that didn't go along with that. They're still in the original calendar. Cool. And they still use Old Slavonic. I think it was the first European Bible. It may have been. When was that made? 1100 or so in Serbia. I'm just running off memory here. So I may say things that are wrong. So if you disagree with them, look them up. As you should. But I've read some of these monks, some of the things that they've written. There's a pretty famous monk from America. He's out in California, I believe. It's Seraphim Rose. Everything I've read that he's written is pretty cool. There's some monks and priests that have YouTube channels. In Russia, there's one. I love this guy. He doesn't do English, though. But I always get subtitles. Oh, sometimes somebody will do the subs in English. But most of them, you got to run your transcript or your subtitles and then translate. And it's pretty good. I'll put a link to his stuff. And then there's Mr. The British guy. His name escapes me. I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'll put some links down here, and I'll describe what they are, in case you don't know about them. But then I found some stuff that just, I don't know about some of these monks. I mean, they put in their time. They keep their mouth shut. They work. Putter around in the garden and paint icons. That's their work. Sometimes restoring the churches and building things, that's good. But some of them have come up with some pretty bizarre stuff. I'll put some links to that too, and I'll put a warning on it for you. I'll just tell you what I think of it. But there's this one guy. This has come up a couple of times too. A few hundred years ago, somebody's saying this, and then another one grabbed onto it and says, yes, this is true. Claims to know what happens to you when you die. Well, I won't leave you in suspense too long. We all want to know about that, don't we? I mean, details, please. This fellow says that when you die, you have to go through 24 toll gates. 24. It's a pretty accurate number there. 24 toll gates where you have to fight demons in order to ascend to the next level, to get to your way to, the kingdom of heaven. Where does he get that? I don't see that anywhere, and I mean, it's just out of the blue. Where did he come up with that? Really? So if I'm living at the time of Antichrist or in the final days, and I'm tortured to death for being a Christian, then I have to prove myself by fighting demons in 24 different toll gates. How long does it take? Does it take a few hours? Does it take a few centuries? I don't know. I'm pretty darn tired of life myself. I'm not gonna, quit early or anything, but, I'd hate to think that, especially if I live to be like 90 or 100, a lot of people in my family have. and things stay like they are, or maybe even get worse, and then I die, and then, oh boy, I get to fight demons 25 toll gates now. It just doesn't sound right to me. Maybe I don't understand him correctly, but I read his whole little blurb. I'll see if I can find that and put a link for it too. You can decide for yourself. I've met monks and I've talked to them. I lived in a Ukrainian Orthodox monastery once. It was in Houston. And I was new. I was an evangelical at that time. I think it was right after I got out of Lakewood Bible Seminar, accredited to the ORU. It was a challenge, you know. Got a lot of ideas that I challenged, and they never did give me my diploma, even though I graduated. It's not that it's worth anything. But these monks, they seemed, I don't know, they're like the opposite of an evangelical, which is nice. So the gospel's already been taken to all the world. What are you sharing the gospel with people for? That part's over. You're supposed to worship God. You're supposed to have the liturgy. Orthodoxy is all about liturgy. It's all about doing things the way we did it for the last almost 2,000 years. That's important. Liturgy and the Eucharist, doing it right, it's very important. But then again, people kind of get mission creep on that too. I've heard them say they have to defend the body and blood of Christ in the Eucharist from being corrupted by unworthy people partaking of it. I don't know where they get that. The Apostle Paul said you should not partake of it unworthily, or you're drinking condemnation to yourself. That sounds like it's the actual participant that is being warned not to partake unworthy. But as the religious nature is they set up a bureaucracy. We're going to put fence laws around here to keep this from happening. Mission creep. Communion is powerful. Or you wouldn't be told not to take it unworthily, because drinking corruption into yourself. And if it's powerful, if you do it wrong, for being bad for you, then it's powerful for being good if you do it right. "24 toll gates." I think some of these monks are just misanthropes. They just don't like people, and they don't like to work, and they get this. They get onto this neat system where they can go someplace and have a little cell, not have to talk to anybody, just study and pray, study and pray, study and pray. Because people study and pray, they go off and seek God and pray and fast and do all this stuff, and then they come back all freaking weird and just start doing all kinds of strange things, like abandoning their family and their wife and marry somebody else within a couple of weeks. And I've seen that happen. Not in Orthodoxy, in the evangelical world. But I see such weird doctrines that come out of some of the stuff that these monks come up with. I think they're just like taking their brains out and playing with them. This is what God has shown me. I think you just don't want to work for a living. We have our work, brother. Yes, we have our work. We putter around in the garden and we make icons and stuff. Stuff like my dad used to do to relax after he got off a 12-hour shift. Your work. I think you'd be a little more spiritual if you had to go work at his factory where I'm at. See what you can do. See if you do a good job. See if you last. I don't know. It's nice to make a little nest for yourself where it's comfortable. You're going to have all this prestige and be surrounded with beautiful things. Well, I think that's a good thing for people that have paid their dues and showed themselves to be worthy of that, to be spiritual, and actually done the work. Usually got to be kind of old to be at that point. It's a bunch of American Orthodox people made a, well, they're organized in Russia. I think they're based around Yaroslav. And they have various websites. Father Joseph Gleason, he's pretty good. I like reading what he has to say. I believe they're all part of, spun out of Russia Insider, and whether Bausman is still behind it or not, I think he is. I think these are Orthodox sites that Charles Bausman has started. I wonder about Bausman, but not much. He used to be an NBC junior executive, and his dad was the Moscow bureau chief during the Cold War. And he started Russia Insider website back in 2014. And he posted stuff from citizen journalists and other sites without accreditation and asked for donations. So the funding dried up for the citizen journalists and these other sites. I think that was a project. I think that was the idea. Self-funding way to dry up people that are posting stuff unauthorized. But it did some good. I mean, it's a big flashy site. A lot of people got to see the truth about what was happening. Where are they? I thought a lot of people were looking at it. Maybe they forgot. They were looking for volunteer journalists. I was in Crimea at the time, and they were posting stuff written by somebody who had a cousin that lived there a few years ago, right? So I wrote a letter and email and volunteered and said, hey, give me an assignment. What do you want me to look into? I got a camera. I can write very well, and I'm here. They never bothered to answer me until about a month later. I got a formula about how I could send them money. I wrote these guys at Yaroslav, and I just needed to unload, I guess. So I just wrote out my whole testimony all the way up to what was going on with me at the time. This is a few years ago. They never answered. Never bothered to answer. I got the kind of material they're after. I think they're after Americans that have a lot of money and want to come to Russia to get away from the filth in America. Well, that's nice. Form a community. There's nothing wrong with that. Not for me. I mean, I'm interested in little communities of Americans that live in Russia that are Orthodox and want to homestead and be independent. I think I could help with something like that, but that's not really what they're after. They're after, I think, people that have some means. Which is all right. People with means need to get out of the system too and do their own thing in their own time. Well, that's enough for this one. Not being judgy or challenging anyone, just telling what I think, the way I see it, my thoughts. Should I keep quiet? That's just what I see. I have questions. Just going to keep on keeping on. Buildy's doing okay. Uncle Buildy signing out.